What's up, Decoders? It's your boy Vernon with Daily Decoded. Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate all the new subscribers. Welcome to the family. Listen, if you guys like what we're doing here, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And I know that is a hefty goal, but a possible goal, right? Dream big. So if you like what we're doing here, please don't forget to hit that subscribe, hit the thumbs up if you like what you see, share it with a friend if you think somebody will be interested. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
And joining us now from the courthouse, Cody Thomas. Cody, great to see you. Wow, what a case. So you are our eyes and ears inside the courtroom. Obviously, cameras have been prohibited, microphones prohibited. Give us an idea of where we're in the defense case, right? Where the defense is going.
Yeah, so this is day 2 of the defense's case, Vinny. We know we had a Saturday session a few days ago. I was in there. The defense got in 3 witnesses after the state rested. The state rested after only 21 witnesses being called. And today, so far, we're out of the lunch break now, but there were 3 witnesses called this morning. 1 student, an officer who was at the scene, and then another student. And the first student who was on the stand was, giving his account of what went down, saying that the rain was coming down. They went into a dugout. Him, Karmelo, and about 2 or 3 other people went into a baseball dugout behind the stadium, to which a coach told them they couldn't be there, so they came back out. This one student who was testifying, a minor, so I can't name him, but he testified about warming up on the...
You see, so this proves that Karmelo was not some like insubordinate thug who just was gonna do what he wanted to do. It's raining. You want to get out of the rain. You go into the dugout. The coach says, hey, y'all can't be here, and they leave. So that kind of debunks the theory that Karmelo was just some disrespectful kid walking around looking for trouble. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Field, along with his 4x100 meter team, and then Karmelo going back in the bleachers. He didn't see Karmelo again for a few minutes until he looked up in the stands and saw what he described as a crowd under the memorial tent with Karmelo there. He noticed his teammates. He says he recounts people standing up. He says that he was walking towards the bleachers because he heard a commotion. He looked away for a second, and then he saw, a bunch of kids sporadically, running from under the tent. And then he saw Karmelo running off. And of course, he's describing the moment that the stabbing happened. But under cross-examination, Vinny, when the prosecutor came up, the prosecutor brought the video back up, the surveillance video of the situation. And he brought up where the kid would be warming up on the field. So you see him, and then you see where the stabbing was going down. And the prosecution challenged it because the kid's account says that he was walking towards the bleachers because he heard some things happening. He paused it. He's like, boom. The prosecutor literally says, boom, in the middle of the courtroom. He's like, this is where the stabbing happened, and you're still standing right here. Okay, so then that happens, and the kid's, just going through the motions again. And then the prosecutor was like, we've spoken before. And the kid's like, yes, sir. He's like, when I showed you this video when we spoke, you admitted to me that you were wrong about some of your accounts. And the kid agreed that he was wrong, and his eyes were open after the meeting that he had with the prosecutors before this trial. So it was a very challenging moment there with that first witness, Vinny.
I think that's understandable, though. I mean, we're asking teenagers to recall something. Well, let's be honest. If you've got a teenager, I've got them. I've got one. I got a couple of them. And trying to get them to remember what they ate for dinner a week ago, right? What they did Friday night, having fun. It's like pulling teeth. And so now you're asking teenagers under the pressure of being at a trial, being cross-examined. It's safe to say, plus the anguish of what they've all encountered with this incident. I think it's safe to say that some of these witnesses, these teenagers, aren't going to remember everything verbatim. I think that's just fair.
Let me ask you, Cody, a big picture question here. And obviously this is difficult for children testifying in a murder trial, right? That's tough. Yeah. We know eyewitness accounts. You have 7 people, you get 7 different versions. We get it. But here you have different high schools. Is the testimony breaking down in any way where, the kids from Memorial are seeing one thing and kids from Centennial are seeing something different? Centennial Karmelo School versus Austin School. Is that playing out inside the courtroom, that we're getting 2 different versions of what's happening here?
It actually is not, Vinny. And the way I've described it is that the story is like a tree. It's the same trunk, but different branches. The foundations of the story are the same, but there's some minor details that may have shifted. As For example, some of the kids say that the push was one arm. Some say it was two arms. Some say it looked like maybe a slight punch. Some say the push wasn't aggressive. Some say both of the kids were getting aggressive. But the situation, there's commonalities between them all, and the main one being that Karmelo eventually put his hand in that book bag saying, "Touch me and see what happens." 100% of the students, not only the prosecution's witnesses, the defense's witnesses as well, the student witnesses, have said this same thing, which leads me, the defense, I would imagine they would have called student witnesses that were testifying in favor of Karmelo, but it seems that, the facts are the facts here, and they're walking down this story, and not the big pictures of the story haven't changed, only minor details in it. Again, like the pushing, whether it was one hand, two hand, or whatever, what have you, whether they were sitting or standing, but the big picture parts about the hand in the book bag, the touch me and see what happens, the phrasing, they all said they weren't really scared about something happening because they thought it was just two boys at a competition mouthing off at each other, being from different schools. They all said that not only did Austin ask him to leave, that multiple people under, the memorial tent asked him to leave, because the way they describe this tent culture, they've had coaches on the stand from all these different schools talking about how each tent is, like the locker room, and you wouldn't hang out in an opposing team's locker room. So again, same trunk of the tree, just some slightly different branches coming off of it.
And the branches aren't breaking down by school to school. It's just witness to witness, like in any other
Right.
case that we would have, where, 5 people see a car accident, and, there's going to be slightly different versions, maybe different colors of the car. I've seen that happen inside a courtroom. Okay.
I think that's fair. I think the merit of the foundation, right? The crux of these arguments are, yes, these kids asked Karmelo to leave, but it's raining. He knows someone there. I can imagine. I mean, I've been a defiant teenager. I've encountered my children, wanting to stand their ground in a moment, right? Thinking that someone's being unreasonable. But the reality is, what it sounds like to me, the twins were being aggressive towards Karmelo. And I heard somebody say this earlier, and it's a very sad reality. If they would have just let it be, if they would have just been like, you know what, it's raining, we've said something to him, he's not leaving, there's no need for me to escalate this, that young man will be alive. And you could even venture to say that if Karmelo would have walked away himself, right, if he didn't feel the need to defend himself, the young man will be alive. But I think in this case, there is no statute that says Karmelo had to leave. Yes, there might be a cultural norm that, oh, this ain't your tent, you should leave, but there's not a law that says he can't be there. But there is a law that says you can't put your hands on somebody. And they all said the boy put his hands on Karmelo first. And Texas has a stand your ground self-defense law. And you might say he overreacted, but he warned him, put your hands on me, you're gonna see what's gonna happen. To me, where I come from, somebody warned you and you still put your hands on him, you're accepting whatever comes from there. Now again, growing up, it was deep, all right? You got in a fight, you wasn't trying to stab or shoot or none of that stuff. But these kids are built different. They're not trying to take no beating. They're not trying to take that L. And again, if the young man minds his business, if the other young man maybe walks away, this doesn't happen. And because that young man felt that he needed to defend himself, because I know a lot of people in the comments are going to say, oh, he was a thug. Why bring a knife to a fist fight? This wasn't an organized fist fight. This is a young man, and his friends trying to get out of the rain, and everything built from that. And listen, it's Texas. Everybody got knives. So like this idea that, oh, why did he have a knife? Oh my gosh, he's so dangerous. You go to Texas right now, walk in any gas station, public library, grocery store, people are gonna have knives in their pocket, in their boot. That's just the culture. So spare me the holier than thou, why did he have it nonsense.
Okay, so the tent seems to be a big issue here. We keep talking about what's happening under the tent. And that brings us to another big question. Why is he there to begin with? Does the defense have a different explanation, or what is the defense explanation as to why Karmelo Anthony would be under the tent of a different high school? Like you said, like being in another high school's locker room. You wouldn't do that in a gym I never did track. I think you're a track guy. I think you have some track experience.
I did in high school, yeah.
Yeah, so explain what the defense and or their witnesses are saying about that as an explanation, because to me it doesn't make sense, but I'm trying to figure out why he would be there to begin with.
Right, so there's two narratives that the defense is putting on as far as why he was under the tent. One, they're talking about, this big rain, and a lot of the students have talked about this rain coming down. They said, it's Texas weather out here. It'll come down heavy, then it'll stop and get just a little nasty and yucky and be a little misty, and then it can come right back, similar to Florida. I know you're very familiar with Florida rain down there too. But
yeah, that Florida rain be crazy.
They talked about, he wouldn't want to be standing out there soaked. And oddly enough, Centennial was the only team out there with no tent that day. That's a big thing they're harping on. And so when this rain started coming down, they're saying Karmelo was in the bleachers just looking for somewhere to get out of the rain. And then compounding upon that, we heard about this kid named Eddie. Eddie is an adult now, so we can identify him. They talked about this kid named Eddie who was childhood friends with with Carmelo's ex-girlfriend at the time. And Eddie was under the Memorial tent. He went to Memorial High School, and over the weekend on Saturday, he actually testified. Now, we've heard this Eddie character in opening statements. We've heard that from several of the student witnesses that Karmelo came up, he kind of gave Eddie a handshake, as if they were, really close friends. But then Eddie got up on the stand on Saturday and all but said, yeah, we were cool. I knew him. He knew the girl or was dating the girl I grew up with, but I wouldn't say we were really good friends, which was shocking to me because we've heard that name so many times. And then for him to say that, but then the defense challenged back because Eddie was like, yeah, I know him, but we don't know each other that well.
And the way the defense flipped that narrative, flip that don't. You know what I mean? Oh, y'all not friends? Oh, you sure? You sure? Check it out.
But then the defense came back with several pictures, picture after picture, 7 or 8 or 9 pictures of Karmelo and Eddie in the same photos at Eddie's house for, birthday parties. And there's group photos and there's photos of just them. So I thought that was kind of a win for the defense, showing, all right, saying you didn't know him, but here you are with 8 or 9 pictures together. So.
And that's a funny thing. This young man who's not one of us gets up there and tries to paint the narrative that him and Karmelo weren't that close. I don't know about you, but in my family, if you're not close to somebody, they're not coming to no family functions. You're not at my house. I'm sorry. That's not happening. And the defense was showing photos of Karmelo and Eddie at family functions together at each other's houses together. So try to get up there and say, oh, we weren't that cool. I knew the guy. Just stinks of they want to stick together no matter what. And this is why I always say you can only trust them so far.
The narrative is that he was trying to get out of the rain. He knew Eddie. Eddie says they didn't really know each other, but the defense came and proved a little otherwise under their cross-examination on Saturday.
And this is an important fact in all of this, and trying to sort through the facts of what happened under the tent. It all begins with, well, why was he there to begin with? So you've got rain, but it seems other teammates were warming up. He's not warming up. He's not competing in the track meet, is my understanding, right? He's there sort of helping, but he was hurt.
So his coach testified also on Saturday. That was the first defense's witness. We've heard the narrative that he wasn't competing. We've heard things about he was suspended from school. Nothing about the suspension has come up in this trial so far. But today, we found out through testimony that Karmelo was actually an alternate for the 4x100 meter race. And this kid that just testified said that he was actually on schedule to do one of the jumps, whether it was triple jump or long jump, he couldn't remember, but he actually was competing that day, which was, another crucial fact because we've heard a lot of things about he wasn't supposed to be there. Well, yeah, he was on the team. He was supposed to be there. It's just unfortunate that this sad, act had to happen here.
And that's been a little bit of a narrative as well, going around trying to paint Karmelo as if he was some thug at school causing problems all the time, and he wasn't supposed to be there, and that got debunked in the trial as well.
But he was supposed to be there that day.
Okay, well, there's been a lot of rumors information, misinformation, disinformation. And that's why we have trials, to get the facts out inside the courtroom. And Cody Thomas is bringing it to us because, again, no cameras, but we've got Cody Thomas. So let's talk about underneath the tent now. So he's there either to dodge the rain, to see his friend Eddie, or perhaps to start some trouble, right? Because there's that narrative from the other side. So what have we heard? You said we've heard these different branches. What is the tone of what is happening under that tent? And what is the moment when things escalate, right? When does it go from nothing to something? And are there different versions of that?
Well, the common denominator, just to make it as simple as possible for people to understand, from 100% of these witnesses, defense witnesses and prosecution student witnesses, down the board, they say he came under the tent, wasn't malicious. They say he came under kind of calm, didn't really say much. Some say that he saw Eddie, gave him a handshake, didn't say much, but he was sitting there under the tent. So now they're asking, does anyone know this kid? Who is this kid? You know, this and that. He's just here. They start asking him who he is.
And that's just like if you're at a party, right? You're at a party, someone's there that maybe you don't know, but somebody there knows them, which maybe they invited them, they welcomed them in, whatever. And he doesn't know anybody for real. So it's kind of keeping to himself. And then all the commotion starts happening because someone who maybe knows him or just feels like they own the space now wants to confront him to tell him he's got a gun. And that's the twins. Let's go.
Eventually, some sort of verbal altercation start happening where they start asking him to leave. And it's not just Austin. It's not just Austin and his brother Hunter. There's kids that have been up there, mixed of all races, because we know the racial aspect is a big component here. But we have black kids testifying, white kids, Hispanic kids. So kids mixed of all, over 10 of them, are testifying about how they even chimed in, like, hey man, come on, get out of here. You shouldn't be under this tent. Just go back to wherever your tent is. And they said it all started kind of calmly, and then they said Karmelo was being stubborn and didn't want to leave. Like, you're gonna have to make me leave. They described it as him trying to be like a tough guy. And then eventually they have, some coaches say that Austin was a thrower. He was one of the discus shot put throwers. They've all kind of echoed the sentiment that the throwers were kind of the leaders, and they were, he was a senior, so, the upperclassmen are picked to kind of take charge when the coach isn't directly around. So eventually.
And listen, I can even speak to probably what was going through Karmelo's head. It's raining. I'm not trying to get wet. We don't have a tent. There's nowhere for me to go. It's a free country, right? You know the idea. And who are you to tell me I gotta leave? All right, so make me leave. Y'all own the space, make me leave. But again, I understand that. And I would even venture to say, maybe in that situation, just to let cooler heads prevail, Karmelo, leave, bro. Like, they don't want you here, leave. That's what I tell my kids. If you're in a place where people do not want you, yo, get up out of there. It ain't worth it. But at the same time, I can understand why he didn't want to leave, why he didn't feel he needed to leave. Does that make sense? And let's not forget, he's a teenage boy. All right? Good. You tell me when you have success making a teenage boy do anything.
Austin kind of takes this lead to try to be like, all right, man, like it's enough of this. It's time for you to go. Things start getting heated. They do admit that Austin was getting, heated as well, getting frustrated, and they were going back and forth as, two testosterone-fueled young teenagers. We know how that goes with boys in competitive sports. And then, eventually they talk about the frustrations escalating on both sides. And then Austin saying, like, I'm not going to fight you at a track meet. They're getting aggressive with each other. And then eventually, the statement that we've heard many a time, Karmelo has his hand in the bag, touch me and see what happens. Austin goes up to touch him, to push him. Again, different accounts of that, whether it was a touch, whether it was a push. And that's when the whole unfortunate circumstance occurred here.
So it's as simple.
So let's stop and evaluate what he just said. Up until the point of the push, it's words. It's, hey man, leave. I ain't going nowhere. You don't, I have to tell you how that probably went. All right. I mean, I'm sure I've been in that situation. Many of us men watching this have been in that situation. Hey man, leave. Why? It's an open space. It's a tent. It's raining. Why I gotta leave? There is no tent for me to go to. I'm not gonna get wet. Why do you want me to leave? You don't own it. If the coaches aren't telling me to leave, why I gotta leave? And on the flip side, now everybody's feeling like, oh, this guy gotta get, who are you? Will you talk crazy to me? We know how this goes. But at this point, it's just words. I'm sure at some point somebody probably stepped to Karmelo, and he's probably been taught by his parents. And because you got to understand Frisco, it's a very affluent and a very not so kind to black people area. Really not that kind to anybody that's not white. I'm just be honest with you, okay? And I'm sure his parents have taught him, you got to stand your ground, defend yourself, you know? And he probably feels a little embarrassed, you know? He probably feels like, I'm not finna let these people punk me. And I can understand that. Now, if he was my son, I would have wanted him to leave. Yo, son, at a point, just de-escalate, get up out of there. But I can understand what probably happened, okay? And now you're in a situation where he's made it clear, don't put your hands on me. And if his parents are like me, I've taught my children, somebody put their hands on you, you got to defend yourself by any means necessary. And if it's a bunch of kids and they're yelling at him and the commotion and somebody comes and puts their hands, and he probably sees the twins. And I'm sure it's not just Austin by himself walking up. I'm sure it's probably him and his brother, maybe even somebody else. And Karmelo's probably feeling like, I'm about to get jumped. Again, if they leave the boy alone, if Karmelo walks away, none of this happens. But there is a legitimate self-defense here. If I tell you, back up, man, don't put your hands on me, and you put your hands on me, hey, now you asking for whatever come. Now, if me, again, you asking for these hands, but I'm not these kids.
Simple as, you're under this tent, you shouldn't be here, leave. I'm not going to leave, make me leave. And then it escalates to touch me and see what happens. So the verbal confrontation being described by the witnesses seems to be initiated by Karmelo Anthony. Is there anyone that said, well,
how does he get that Karmelo initiated? Karmelo said, if you touch me. He didn't put his hands on anybody. He said, if you touch me, see what happened. Touch me and see what happened. Now, I'm warning you. Hey, bro, don't put your hands on me. How do you get that he initiated the physical altercation? Yo, I'm telling you, boy, they're going to always look out for their own.
By Karmelo Anthony. Is there anyone that said, well, no, they were getting loud and telling him to get out before the refusal?
No, there's been no testimony as far as that. Down the board, all the prosecution's witnesses, all of those students have been saying they're calling Karmelo the instigator. They're calling him the aggressor. They do admit that Austin was, fueled up too, and being too prideful, boys as they get. They even talked about how when, the statement with Karmelo with his hand in the book bag, they said Austin said back to him like, oh, you're not going to do anything, calling his bluff. It's like, oh, you're from Frisco. We don't do that around here. And they're all sitting there not thinking that there would be an actual knife in the bag. So, all of them have said that Austin was kind of being a tough guy too. And then he went over to him, goes to push him, goes to shove him. But again, verbal altercation that led to this unfortunate event, something that, it shouldn't have been a stabbing here. We got two young kids who had their whole lives ahead of them, two 17-year-old men, and just this heightened mistake here that happens to be the most pinnacle of mistakes that has affected both of their lives just emotionally, and obviously it's changed their lives forever.
Yo, I'm gonna leave it here. This video has gotten way longer than I wanted it to be. No matter how you slice it, And I know people, there's emotions here. Whenever there's race and kids, there's gonna always be heightened emotion. But the truth of the matter stands, and I don't think there's no other way to see it. This should have been avoided. Austin, his brother, the rest of them should have left Karmelo alone. If he wasn't over there creating a problem, if he wasn't over there being disruptive and he was just trying to stay out of the rain, let him be. But also for Karmelo, brother, they don't want you there. You could have left. You could have avoided all of this by just getting your black behind up and leaving, bro. This could have all been avoided. You did not have to prove anything to anybody. And like the young man who's covering the trial said, this could have all been avoided. Two 17-year-old boys, their whole lives ahead of them, trying to prove something in the moment, and both of their lives now impacted. One having lost his life, and no matter what happens to Karmelo, he's never going to be the same after this. Let's be clear. Whether he goes to prison or he gets found not guilty, he's going to have to wear the weight of killing a young man over something that should have been avoided. And that's a sad reality. And I wouldn't wish that on a grown man, let alone a 17-year-old young man. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. I know there are a billion different channels you could be checking out right now, yet you're here rocking with me, and I truly appreciate that. Listen, if you like what you saw, please hit that like button. If you like the channel, hit the subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss a video here at Daily Decoded. If you know someone who might also enjoy this content, share the video with them. Heck, share it on all your social media. Let's get this community built up, and let's be able, so that we're able to share more and more of this content to the world. Listen, guys, as always, stay safe, stay vigilant, stay dangerous, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.